And I'm going to post this on YouTube and send you guys the link so you can go back and watch it again if you want to, and pause it and go backwards and go forwards and whatever you want, or hear me again. But when it comes to students and student rights, you got to be very careful. So our recommendation is to make sure that you have student videos off. However, if your principal says otherwise, that is entirely up to you. If you are recording, like I am doing now, you definitely want to have that off. You have to have student videos off. You do not want to post student videos to Edsby, YouTube, anywhere else you want to go into. And it's funny because I've done, what, Carrie, like 6, 7, 8 of these already. And now I'm getting to the point where I'm telling folks you may even be posting to YouTube, because Edsby's even having some issues, as you all know and have experiencing in the morning, especially once the middle school kids wake up, is what my wife was saying this morning. She teaches middle school, so it starts to die around like 9:30 in the morning. So those are two things to know ahead of time with Zoom. What I'm going to do for the next 35 or 40 minutes is take you through the various features of Zoom and how to set it up, how to get a chat going like this, how to get all your settings right, and to make sure you can do a chat like this with your students, parents, colleagues, or all three. And then I will have a short question and answer session. Anything that that Carrie can't answer in the chat feature, because I'm not really monitoring that, I'll answer those at the end, or she'll pause me in the middle of something to say, hey, Scott, we've got a great question here. Make sure you understand this one, or give this one out. So what I first want to show you guys, I'm going to share my screen with you several times. I will show you how the sharing feature works after I've done it, but I want to take you through the process of setting everything up and getting your account going. So first thing I'm going to share with you is my window, where I've already set up and started working on Zoom. So give me just 1 second, because I have way too many windows open right now, of course. Let's see, where did you go? Clever. So you want to start out by going to Clever. That is the easiest way to get into Zoom, and you can see that here now for me. I'm going to log in. If you haven't logged into Clever yet, you're going to log in with Active Directory for Hillsborough County Public Schools, and it is the same Lawson number at hcps.net, Lawson at hcps.net, that you're using when you log into OneDrive, when you log into Edsby, anything like that. You log in this way, and your same district password. And I have to click teacher because I have multiple logins as my district role. But when it does that, it's going to take you to the Clever homepage, your Clever dashboard, basically. And if you're not familiar with this, everybody has access to this now. It's great having this dashboard with your favorites up here, and I'll show you how to get them up there in a moment. You can tell I was teaching elementary last spring, while I have iReady and Typing Club and stuff like that. But I'm going to scroll down to the bottom where you're going to see more apps. And everybody has this more apps section provided by the district. And as of a couple days ago, they added this Zoom icon here for you. Now, to get the Zoom icon in your favorites, you just hover over the little heart and click on the heart, and it will go up here to the top and stay in your favorites. Also, while I'm on this page, right here in the middle, you have e-learning for school closure. So you're going to have all this information here and all the lessons that the district staff is putting out for you. You can find stuff here and useful information here for you. So I'm going to click on the Zoom link, and if you already have an account, it will log you in automatically to Zoom with your school district email. If you haven't got an account yet, it may prompt you to create an account. It may also ask you to join Troy Suarez's account. Don't think this is some kind of creepy guy on the internet. Troy is one of our supervisors in technology, and he is the one who set all this up for us. So if you get that notification of, do you want to join Troy Suarez's account? The answer is yes. Go ahead and do it, and it will give you this access. Now notice it has my district email address here. It has my basic account and my meeting capacity at 100. So that's the most I can put on a chat, and once it goes, it's done. You might be saying to yourself, but Scott, you've got more than 100 on here right now. That is correct. I am very lucky, blessed. I work for Florida Southern College as an adjunct professor, and I have an account through them because I use Zoom every semester, and so mine goes up to 300. Hence why there's more than 100 of you on this chat, and I was able to admit some of you last minute even though it was full. So that's all this page gives you here. There are really 3 more things you need to be aware of on this page. Number 1, this important notice about the Zoom time limit. This will come up here until you clear it out. Number 2, setting up a meeting. It's a very simple process, and I go to the website every time and I click on meetings, and you can see here I've got several meetings set up. I better delete these at some point because I hate to have people just hanging out in there. But the easiest way to do this is click set up, schedule a meeting. So I'm going to call this My Fake Meeting 3. Y'all can laugh at me anytime you want. We need laughter in this time and day. So laugh at me all you want. It's good. I don't use descriptions, but then you have when and what time. So I'm going to leave this one up for 3/24 at 12 p.m. You can set it up anytime you want, any day you want. This time here does not mean you have to start at noon. It just is a schedule for calendar purposes. Carrie and I were on here about 15 minutes before you guys came in, and I was able to talk with her about a few things I'm going to do differently than the one she was on last night because of what I've learned from doing these chats 3-4 times a day. So this time is just a starting time. You can always go in early. Duration. This, again, is a calendaring feature only. I'm going to set it for 2 hours just because I want my calendar to block off 2 hours. That's it. Nothing else to that piece. It doesn't mean at 2 hours, boom, you're done and kicked out. Time zone, of course, obvious, we're in Eastern time. This one right here might be useful for you if you decide you want to meet with the same students or at the same time every day, or let's say you're a high school teacher and your kids are working independently and you want to have a set hour for office hours when I'm going to be available here to answer your questions. From 8 to 9, I'm teaching the lesson, but from 1 to 2, I am up here just kind of checking questions and doing that. So that will be that reoccurring meeting thing. And nice thing about that is you don't have to send out invitations again and again. It uses the same invitation over and over and over again. I don't play with this setting meeting ID. I leave it as set. I do require a meeting password only because I have so many folks wanting these trainings. I think there's 15 more later in the week, and they are all full right away. Hang on one second. I've got somebody trying to get in and they can't. Let me try and send them the link one more time, guys. Okay. The beauty of multitasking. So I like the meeting password. For your students, you may not need it. It's entirely up to you. That's your choice. Down here on video, this is a really, really great feature of this program. It allows you to set up ahead of time whether you want video on or off. So for me, because I want to see all your smiling faces, I clicked on for both items. So I want my video on and I want your video on. I want to see what you're doing. However, if I were doing this with students and I was planning on recording and my principal says, hey, Scott Richmond, don't put students' pictures up on the internet, I would click off. This off feature means that students will not be able to turn on their camera no matter what. You have locked them out of it. Okay? I leave the audio one open for both. This is a neat feature people don't realize, but some of your students, who, even though we're working really hard to get technology and internet in the hands of every single student, every single family, there are some kids still may not have it, but they may have a phone. They can dial in. If you remember that invitation I sent you guys either last night or today, it had dial-in numbers with a code. They can actually listen in on speakerphone. They can't see what you're doing, but they can still follow along with the lesson and ask questions and things like that. So definitely a useful feature here. The last piece at the bottom is all about options. I never enable join before host. Never, never, never. Think of this bad scenario. You enable this button, your students get on there before you, and who knows what they're doing in that chat room before you show up. So definitely a bad idea to enable host before join. No. Put a big no on that one. The next two, though, are my two favorite features. Muting you guys upon entry. So I did that today so that when you came on board, your microphone was already muted. Can you imagine 105 people all talking at the same time? Nothing's getting done. I also enabled the waiting room, and that's a really nice feature if you want to make sure all your settings are up. I'm going to show you about sharing documents and how those things work. This gives you time to make sure everything is up and running before people come in. And so I'll show you how that feature works once you're inside the chat as well. The next two I don't really mess with, but we'll talk about breakout rooms a little bit later. And then finally, if you want to make sure it records on your local computer, you can check this one. And the second you start that chat, it's going to start recording for you. And I'll show you more about how the recordings work at the end of our session today. All right, I'm going to hit save. And now it's going to give you my meeting, and there we go, my fake meeting 3. Here's my calendar information if I want it. Here's the meeting ID. Here's the password, and here is the link. I can always copy this invitation, and here's how I copied the invitation to you guys earlier on today. The only thing I would say with this invitation, if you're going to use it, is I would delete this last line down here where it says find your local number. We have not found a use for that yet, and we've had about 5 or 6 people playing with this program for the last 2 weeks to see a use for it, and we haven't found one yet. So you notice this line wasn't on your email because I deleted it before I sent it to you. You would copy the invitation, it copies to your clipboard, and boom, you paste it in Edsby, you paste it in Remind. We'll talk about those 2 things a little bit later on as well. All right, so that's this feature. You can always come back and edit your meeting as well if you want to. You can start it from here, but I'm going to show you the app in a few minutes. The second thing you want to look at in particular on this page is the settings page over here. So I'm going to click on settings, and you'll see we have a multitude of settings in here. One of the things you need to look at here, because I tend to set up most of the stuff in each chat because each chat's differently, but in Meeting Advanced, I'm going to click on that one. It's going to take me down here. If you plan to use the breakout rooms, you've got to turn it on ahead of time. Carrie and I were on last night playing around with some new features, and we didn't have this turned on, and we couldn't do breakout rooms. So this, you only have to do it once. You do it once and once only the first time you log in, and boom, you're done. Last but not least on this page is up here in resources, you can download the free Zoom client. Highly recommend the client. Definitely recommend it for phones and tablets, but highly recommend it for your computer too because it makes things work just that much easier. At 10 o'clock this morning, I was following a webinar that one of our colleagues was putting on, and we were told just to watch it and give feedback. I had that on my second monitor over here to my right, so I could still work here while I was monitoring the webinar. Just a great thing with that feature allowing you to do that free of a browser. Regarding devices and which device you use, here is my advice. I have held web chats with Zoom on my Macs, on my iPad, on my iPhone. It works on all 3. But by far, if I am going to do a webinar, I use my computer. I use my computer, and there are several reasons why. Number 1, just the full ability to multitask. The fact that I can have multiple windows open and be able to show you guys stuff at the same time. Number 2, multitasking also gives the camera the ability, I'm going to click off of this screen right now and go look at something else. Notice I am still moving, I am still talking, and that's great, even though I'm not in the same window I was in before. When I did this on my iPad, the first time I tried it with a group of students from Florida Southern, I went to switch to find a document to share with them, and it caught my face like this. Now, you don't want to be stuck like that all the time when it goes from screen to screen to screen. I've had worse ones, but that's the one I remember the most. So being on a multitasking computer allows it to keep going in the background. When I've had to use my iPad because I've been out of town before doing web chats, I always make sure before I switch the screen, I do this. And then it locks me in that pose as opposed to something like this. So I've seen those kinds of things before, just kind of tips and tidbits and tricks for you guys. So I'm going to stop the share and bring you guys all back together with me again. And there's a question here real quick I caught just came up in the chat about muting and turning off individual students. Yes, you can, and I'll come back to that one a little bit later. But because you guys are so large, I muted you all. And that way I don't have to think about who's going on. I'm going to be honest with you guys. We were on a chat earlier today, and somebody wasn't muted and made a comment that was inappropriate. So you definitely want to be careful about those kinds of things and know when you are or are not muted. So while we're talking about that, why don't you all take your mouse, or if you're on an iPad or iPhone, your finger, and hover over the window that has your picture on it. And you should see a little piece come up that says whether you're muted or not, and a little 3 dots. If you click on the 3 dots, you'll be able to rename yourself. And this is a very important feature because then you can make yourself into Mrs. Jones or Mrs. Rogers or whatever it is, opposed to showing your whole name or however you've logged in before. So again, you hover over yourself, you click on the 3 dots, and you can change your name. Really neat is that I can change yours too as the host. So Yvette Miller, I'm going to change yours for you, ma'am. Here we go. Are you Mrs. or Miss? Just nod for Mrs. Okay, there you go. All right, there you go. I changed yours too. So really important here when you're doing that feature is may not want to let students have control, and you can fix that piece as well when you set up your chat, because they may make their name Doofus or something like that, or something worse. And you know kids, right? I mean, you guys teach them, doesn't matter what grade level they're in. Kindergarten teachers, they do that kind of stuff just as middle and high school teachers do. That's just how kids are. They're going to push whatever buttons you are. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into the app itself and show you some screenshots out of the app. And when I launch my app, one of the neat things it does is it gives me this screen. Now realize I am working on a Mac right now, so I am in dark mode, so everything looks like a black background. I do that because it's much more easing on the eyes and having a white background. But Windows looks almost identical to this screen. This is the login window when you go in and log into the Zoom app. You'll use your same district username and password that you set up when you went and logged it in. First name dot last name at SDHC, that good thing you all are familiar with. As far as the icons on this page, this new meeting here, this is only if you want to start a new meeting, not one that you set up ahead of time. If you have set up a meeting ahead of time, at least an hour before, it will show up in a window like this. This is the one from yesterday. So here it is. You can always use the three dots here to copy the invitation. You can also start the meeting anytime from here as well. When I go to join other people's meetings, I go in this app as well and click on join. I do that because then it keeps me my Florida Southern account and doesn't put me back in my district account. That's only for me personally because I have two accounts I'm managing back and forth. So that's this screen here, a great useful tool for you as you log in. As the host, when you do log in, this is what you're going to see. And I'll show you that. Of course, there's only Carrie and I right now in this one because I did it before you guys showed up. But this is what I see in my main window. You can see I have a lot more features than you guys have turned on, and that's because I am the host. Notice before I mentioned the whole speaker view versus gallery view. Here's where you will find that piece, so I could switch back and forth if I wanted to. Down here at the bottom left, everybody has these controls. These are only for you, your particular video, your particular audio. It has nothing to do with your participants. So I can't click these and change your stuff, but I will show you what these two do in a moment. I have screenshots for that as well. Invite here, let's say I didn't send somebody that invitation ahead of time. I can get a link from here to invite people as well if I want to. Manage participants, which I have that window open up here to the top right-hand side. This is that waiting room I talked about with you guys earlier. So notice here, Carrie and I were in the chat, and you guys were in the waiting room. The neat feature here is that I can message you guys in the waiting room. So I sent you guys a message, hey, I'll let you in a few minutes. I can admit you all at the same time. I can admit you individually. And so I can actually manage the chat that way. So when I have people like Carrie helping me today, I let her in first. We had a conversation, and then I'll go back and let everybody else in later. The next one is a share screen. I'm going to spend a lot of time on that, so I'm going to skip over it for a moment. The next one is the chat feature. So this is how you enable the chat window. Notice I have a chat window over here, and here's where I sent to you guys in the waiting room that we're going to start in about 8 or 9 minutes. I will show you more features in the chat and something you definitely want to take note of because of student privacy. We'll come back to that one. The record feature again is here. The breakout room feature is here. I haven't used reactions yet. I couldn't tell you what it does. I'll play with it sometime. And then finally, the end meeting button over here when I am done. Now, real quick on the record piece. The record will record once you start it. So we are recording right now. It will record all the way until you either tell it to stop or you end the meeting. So I'm going to stop it ahead of time and we're done so we can have question and answer. But that's something to understand as well if you're recording it, and it does save it to your hard drive on your computer. All right. So knowing that, I want to go over some of the windows that you'll see as a host, some of the features you want to look at, and I'm going to start with the chat window. So what I've done here is I have gone ahead and used the Windows version this time to show you what the chat window looks like. Okay. Now you're asking yourself, wait a minute, Scott, why are you doing screenshots? Can't you just show us what your desktop does? Yes, I can. But when I do that, it hides all the windows for Zoom. It hides all the windows for Zoom. I cannot show you. This is the one feature of the program I cannot get why they set it up that way. But that's why I took screenshots of everything. It's just like opening a document. That's all it is. So here is the chat feature. What I tried to show you on this one, ladies and gentlemen, is the chat feature has two very important things you need to be aware of. Number one, this to. Right now, it's set up to go to everyone. So if I type a message in this chat like you guys are doing, it goes to everyone. I, as the host, can message each one of you individually or as a whole group. So those are my options. You, as a participant, depends on what access I give you, and that's this little 3-dot thing to the right. So I've clicked on it and took a screenshot here so you can see what it looks like. Notice participants can chat with, no one, host only, everyone publicly and privately. By default, yours may come up as everyone publicly and privately. You want to check this. You do not want students messaging each other privately where you can't monitor it. If they are messaging privately, you can't monitor it. Now in this one here, everyone publicly means that everyone in this chat right now can message publicly, and Carrie's been responding to your questions, and then I can respond to you privately, and you can send to me privately, but you can't send to each other privately. And we know what kids do in rooms where no adults are around. So we want to make sure we look at this feature and change that to not get us caught into a bad situation where someone says something bad. You can save the chat from here if you want to, but the chat does save automatically. So the chat you guys are doing right now with Carrie will save, and I will post that at a later time when PDF starts cooperating. I can get in there and actually send you guys something. All right, moving forward, let me show you the window with managed participants now, where you can see the things that I was doing on that window. Just give me 1 second, I will pull it up. Okay, here is that window again. This time I've done the Windows version again for you guys. And notice there are some settings in here. Now, right now I was in the chat by myself, but there's a mute all, unmute all. I have that same feature. I can mute you or unmute you anytime I want. This is that Manage Participants button that was down at the bottom. Then over here on the right, this is the most important thing. You've got to change some of these settings. Now, notice there are a few settings here, such as mute participants on entry. I checked that one. Allow participants to unmute themselves. I unchecked it. Allow participants to rename themselves. If I was doing this with students, I would uncheck that because I don't want students renaming themselves. I might rename them instead. That way they don't put silly names in. I mean, you know your kids. You have to trust what they can and cannot do and what they will do. So that's some other features there for you. And when you do use the waiting room, there's also a waiting room feature here, but this chat didn't have a waiting room in it. I do have a video of that one that I can show you guys, or a screenshot, sorry. Uh-oh, somebody figured out how to write on my documents. Who's playing around over there? I love it. I love it. You guys are great. No worries. So this is the view. I didn't give you guys the view. Hang on a second. This is the view of the waiting room again with people in it. And so when you click on more, you'll have that feature about what you want to do with the waiting room, whether you want to admit people or not admit people. Let's see. Video, your video. This is an important thing about your video. You do have options in both the menu and the video. I'm going to show you both of those right now. First, I'm going to show you the sound one for you particularly. So this is your mute window right here. When you click on the up arrow, you get all these options here so you can change things around. If you happen to have an external microphone, if you want to use something like that, you have that option. I'm using the one that's built into my computer. If you want to use external speakers, you can. Things like that, you can change all these settings in here. And again, this is only for you. This is not for your participants. Same with this window here, where you can now change your background as well. Now, if you don't have the virtual background setting yet, you can update your settings and update your program by going to zoom.us and downloading it. And when you do that, you can create virtual backgrounds for yourself from just about any picture that you can find. So this is Gullfoss Falls in Iceland. So I'm going to spend the rest of our chat in Iceland if you guys don't mind. I've seen people putting things from Hogwarts or things like that. They're a teacher at Hogwarts now in the background, whatever it is. Yesterday I had the football stadium at Florida behind me. Tomorrow I'll probably have Disney World behind me. So those things are things you can play around with for yourself to make it a little more interesting. Plus, if you notice, it now blacks out the back of my room. You can't see my room, but be careful. Notice my hands are like disappearing and things like that. I had somebody on the chat with me yesterday where they they had a shirt that matched the background and their whole body disappeared. And there was a floating head in the window. So you want to be careful and test it out before you do that. You do have a screen for that. And this is what it will look like. And again, I'm making one of those silly faces in here. But this is what that screen will look like. Sometimes it comes preloaded with documents. Sometimes it doesn't. But you can add almost any picture you want by clicking this plus button right here and adding that picture in. And then it'll show a virtual background for you, which is kind of cool. Because then, now you can pretend you're somewhere else and not sitting at home, in your office or wherever you happen to be. So that's another really neat feature of this. Let's see, some other things to show you. We did the waiting room. We did virtual background. We did the video window. We're going to share in a moment. We did participants. We did what I see. We did the muting thing. We did managing. Okay. Just making sure I cover everything with you guys. No offense, I have a checklist here. Let's talk about sharing windows. So when you click on that share button at the bottom, you will get a window that pops up something like this, depending upon what you have open on your computer. Now, the beauty of the share feature is you can share your entire desktop screen. You can share a virtual whiteboard we'll go to in a minute and play around with. You can actually share an iPad, iPhone, Android phone that might be attached to your computer, or you can share any open window. So the reason why I like to have a checklist of things that I'm going to cover is I have my documents ready. I have them lined up and ready to open. So I open up a document ahead of time, and then I share it with you. This only shows documents I currently have open, but I can click on files if I want and hunt for it. But imagine you're on with kids for 30 minutes and you're hunting for something, you don't know where it is. So I try to keep all those documents open ahead of time, and I can add them in and put them in and show you guys a various document. So that's what that looks like on my side of things on the sharing screen. The last thing I want to show you guys on sharing is the virtual whiteboard. We're going to go in there now, and this is accessible to you in the main chat as a whole. The virtual whiteboard is a place where you yourself can go in and type and text stuff, and you can write stuff, and you can add stickers and stamps and all kinds of stuff. But depending upon how you set this up, your participants can also go in and do the same thing. If you all float your mouse up to the top of the screen, you'll find a floating window from Zoom, and you'll see a View Options button. And in there, you will find an Annotate button, and then you will be able to go ahead and join me like somebody just did with their hello. So you can change the color of your ink, anything you want. The only thing with this is to be very careful because there are 100 of you right now, and so that's how do I know who's doing what. If I have a smaller group of students, I can do that. The Annotate feature is really, really neat because it allows everybody to collaborate together on this whiteboard. Two things about this whiteboard. Number one, I took it away by accident. Oops, I'm sorry, guys. Good news is, as long as I haven't ended the chat, it's still there. Okay? Same whiteboard, same stuff. I can save the whiteboard. So I have a floating menu bar that comes with my whiteboard, and I can click on Save. I can also clear the whole thing and make you guys start over again after I've saved it. So a lot of features here of things I can do to share with my students and allow them an opportunity to work with me on an object. The other thing you may have figured out, and somebody saw it, the Annotate feature works whenever I'm sharing a document as long as I've left you the rights, which right now I've not changed those. So let's say I'm teaching third grade students how to annotate text and mark it so they can have main ideas ready for their writing sample. I can pull up an article on the screen like we have the whiteboard here. I can show them how I'm going to underline a key idea. I'm going to put a check plus next to something that supports an opinion piece, a check minus next to opposed. And now, of course, I can have a student come in and do the next paragraph. And I can select them to do that, and they can have control or access of things. So a really, really neat feature that here's my idea when it comes to this, and it comes to using the documents. We don't have enough time here with 100 people to really go through all your individual questions. Start a fake chat with your colleagues, go in there and do a document and see if each of you can figure out how to work on it, how to highlight, how to underline. It could even be a math worksheet. It could be, a science worksheet. It could be something out of a civics book for middle school civics. Anything like that is something you guys can work on together. Just a neat feature to allow you to collaborate with your students in that whole group. Now, again, a lot of this depends, ladies and gentlemen, on whether or not you're doing a large group like this one or you're doing a smaller group. Now, for some of you elementary folks, you're self-contained all day, same kids, 18, 20, 24 kids. It's probably manageable. On the flip side, you're a high school chemistry teacher like my son, and instead of having 3 chats for your 3 chem regular classes, yes, you can share while we're there, pull in D. Yep, you can pull it back up again. Thank you very much. Only because I've given you access. I can restrict your access if I want to. I can also, by the way, and this drives people nuts, I can stop you from sharing if I want to. By the way, regarding the sharing feature, if I'm sharing, no one else can interrupt. If you're sharing, only I can interrupt. So understand that piece. The settings I have right now set up that if you're sharing, no one else can interrupt but me. If I'm sharing, none of you can interrupt at that time. Can you connect an Elmo? Yes, you can connect an Elmo. I have seen that done already. It'll show up in that sharing feature. So that's a piece as well if you want to do that with your student. I saw that pop up in my question piece. Last thing on the sharing screen, so I was talking about my son. He teaches high school chemistry. If he has 60 students and he wants to go ahead and share with those 60 students, he may not want to do something like this with 60 kids on at the same time. So that's an important thing. Sorry, I'm going to stop you right now because we're going to go on to other things. All right. Nobody can share now. Sorry. We're going to keep going. All right. So that is sharing the whiteboard, a really neat feature that you can use. Again, documents, those kind of things. The last thing I want to show you guys. Whoa, how did you get control again? I thought I turned you off. Well, guys, please stop sharing real quick. We're going to go to the last feature I want to show you, which is breakout rooms. I'm going to show you what that looks like first in a breakout room. And let me find my screenshot. This is why you want to have your screenshots able and open ahead of time. There we go. All right, so this is the screenshot for the breakout rooms. When you click on the breakout room button in your menu bar as host, and only the host can do this, you get this option window that comes up. Notice this time I had 90 people in the chat. I could put them into 10 rooms. That would put 9 in the room. I can assign them automatically where the program does it for me, or I can do it manually where I can put them in their own rooms. And if they do that, it just gives you a big long list of all the people on the chat, and you select what room they want to go into. For me, with 100 people, I'm not doing that one. For you guys with 24 kids, you may want to have set groups already set up that you know who's going to work together. Now, be aware when I put you in your breakout rooms, number one, you can talk and unmute your own microphone. So when you get into your breakout room, you can unmute your own microphone. That's number one. Number two, you can share items in there with each other. So you can have a conversation, pull up the whiteboard, whatever you want. So what I'm going to do in a moment is I'm going to assign you to rooms and let you go there and see what it looks like. I'll pop into a few rooms. While you're there, talk about what you might do there. I just saw a question come from Mrs. Altman. You cannot monitor them unless you're in there with them, so you know your students. You know what to and what not to do with breakout rooms. But let's try it anyway, get you guys out there talking. I'll come visit through a few of the rooms. Here you go.
Bunch. There we go.
Hello, breakout room 1. How are you guys?
Good morning.
Good.
Looks like you guys got it figured out. I'll be back with you all a little later.
Okay.
Hello, breakout room 2. How are you guys?
Good.
Good.
You figuring things out. I'll give you a few more minutes to play.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay.
All
What's
right.
the time limit on it? Each
You
breakout
can set it
room?
as long as you want. I actually end it personally. I have an end button. I'll show you guys when we come back.
Okay.
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 Yep.
How about now?
I
There
can.
you go.
How are you guys?
Oh, hi.
All right, so you guys
Hello.
have control here. I'll let you talk for a little bit. I'm going to go to another room, okay?
Hi.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay.
You're welcome.
I thought you were saying.
Hello,
at,
breakout room 6, I think, or 8, something like that.
8.
I think we're 8.
There you go. How are you guys?
Good.
Figuring things out?
Yeah.
All right, I'm
Yes.
going to go to a different room. I'll see you guys back in a few minutes. Hello, breakout room 10.
You're in room
Hello.
Hi, guys. All right, I'm going to call you guys all back now.
10. Okay.
Are you bringing us back?
So as you guys are coming back, I'm going to pull up what it looked like for me when I pulled up the breakout rooms. Notice I have breakout room 3 here that I was in. I can leave it if I want to. As the moderator, I can jump in and out of any breakout room that I want and stay there as long as I want to. I can join room 1. And then I have a piece down here where I can close all rooms. I can also broadcast a message to all rooms. So I saw a couple questions pop up while we were in the breakout rooms. How do you monitor your students when they're in here? You can't. I'm sorry. That's the only thing I haven't figured out yet. I have not figured out that piece. And so until I do, and unfortunately I have 4 of these today, so I don't think I'll get to it today. But if I do figure it out, I will send a broadcast out to everybody who's been in the class with me that we can then talk about that piece and see if there's a way to monitor them when you're not in there. The nice thing though is if you do have kids that you can trust in a breakout room by themselves, they do the virtual whiteboard, they write stuff down, and then they go and they save it, they can come back and share it in the main room. So that's a neat piece as well that might be a possibility. And I saw Carrie just text about inviting a colleague to moderate with you. By the way, those of you who teach, co-teach, whether it be ESC or Gen Ed or both, great feature here of being able to work with students and pull some students out into a breakout room, especially like if you are the ESC teacher pulling a small group, or you have a co-teacher pulling a small group, something like that. If you're co-teaching, you can do that with the breakout rooms and manually assign them so that one of you gets the 5 kids who need the extra help and the other teacher has the other 30 kids or whatever it may be at the same time. So a very, very useful feature there with that piece. The last thing I want to show you guys is, of course, this does record, and it does record and save on your hard drive. So I'm going to show you kind of where that is and where you'll find it when you're done. So here's my Finder window on my Mac, and it's a folder called Documents. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're on Windows or Mac. It will always, in the folder called Documents, create a folder called Zoom. Okay? And so here you see all the chats I've done, and it creates a folder for each chat by date and time. So here's the one I did this morning. 3 things it will put in there for you. Number 1, the Zoom video as an MP4. This is easily uploadable right away to YouTube. You don't do anything to it. You just upload to YouTube, create a link. Or you upload to Edsby, but I don't know how much we're trusting Edsby right now. It's having issues. I understand that piece. They're working on it. It records the chat. So that sidebar chat you and Carrie have been having records that too. And it does an audio-only file for people who don't have video if they want to just watch the audio of what happened in the chat. You can rename this. Notice I renamed mine to say Zoom Webinar 3/24/20, 8:30 a.m. And I'll do the same thing for our chat. It's not in there yet, obviously. And I'll name it the same thing as the date and time. And I'll post to YouTube and I'll send you guys a link when I can somehow get back into PDS, which will probably be late tonight. So you might get it very, very late tonight. That's really it. When you end the meeting, the video stops and it actually saves itself. It takes a while to encode. As far as size, they're not huge. My average hour session on Zoom has been anywhere from 400 to 500 megabytes, which is not a ton for a computer. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording now, and I'm going to try